What's up gamers, Dreamcastguy here, and today we're digging into my brutally honest review of Mortal Shell. Difficulty is a topic that's often discussed in the world of video games. When is something considered to be too hard or too easy? How much health should a boss have? And would it be insane to give him like 1,000,000 HP? These are questions I think about a lot since I do personally enjoy much tougher adventures. And Mortal Shell, it's definitely not trying to be simple. As soon as you see this combat, it's probably bringing up memories of classic Dark Souls, where if you make one big mistake, it can be punishable by instant death. But there are some interesting twists to this gameplay that make it feel good despite the constant crushing enemies that are just all over the place. Now let me make this warning extra clear right here at the start. This game is going to absolutely slaughter you sometimes. If you're hoping for a nice little cryptic adventure that's got some mysterious little puzzles and stuff, this is not an experience that you can just breeze through. It takes practice, focus, and a heck of a lot of patience. Now, the major element that makes Mortal Shell unique is the shell system. While this is an action RPG and certainly has some nasty foes that are littering the dungeons, it's also, in a way, much more forgiving. While we're taking on the role of something like a knight in shining armor or a shadow-dodging ninja, the character that we really are is this spectral, ghostly form. This creature that we're playing as has the talent that he's able to put on the corpses of dead soldiers like a nice set of clothes. And so throughout this game, you unlock 4 separate heroes that we can play as. Now, each of them controls mostly the same. You're still going to be swinging swords and casting a bit of magic. They also have this ability to turn themselves into stone with this thing called Harden. This makes it where instead of just having like a standard block where you're trying to deflect a blow, in this game, you're freezing yourself that way you can absorb any one attack. And this starts off a bit strange. It feels a bit like peculiar and out of place, but as you adapt, you quickly find ways to really try and fit this into combos and even figure out how to knock people off balance by using a really well-timed harden. Like if somebody's winding up a super attack, you can harden at the last second, and not only will they bounce off, sometimes they'll literally fall on the ground and give you an opportunity to do a giant super attack of your own. What makes this interesting is that not only is it a system that kind of favors a more offensive kind of combat despite the heavy difficulty, it makes it so you're definitely encouraged to take more risk. Now this is doubled down by the fact that if you do slip up and take a particularly brutal blow from one of these enemies, you don't just instantly die. Instead, you get thrown from your body and have a chance to run back to it. If you make it back to your shell in time, you get a chance to get a second full health bar. So you kind of have what I would consider a 2-life system. And this helps you get a chance to experiment and learn from your mistakes, since it's not one of those things where if you just make one tiny freaking error, you're just instantly sent back to the last checkpoint. Now with that being said, these different shells, this is where the game really manages to expand itself, because essentially, while we're wearing the different shells, each one has their own method of play. For example, one of the shells that's like a ninja, he has a huge stamina bar, so you can just straight up action roll again and again to get out of the way of a lot of the big enemy attacks. If you want to be a little bit more in their face though, you can play as this large Templar who's able to use his heavy health bar to take a few hits while also dishing out a bit of death on his own. These shells, they're more than just stat differences though. They really have this very original skill set that's constructed into them, but I want to talk about that more in a minute. It's important to take a moment here to try and acknowledge where this game shines brightest. Now, I have played thousands of games at this point, and I've seen literally hundreds of projects get completely ruined by badly built battles. If you want your journey to be hard and fun, you need to make it so that the player doesn't get frustrated and is instead happy to try and see how everything works, to try and conquer every single fight. To put it in a more basic way, you need to make sure that your combat is more epic than annoying. Well, Mortal Mortal Shell, it really freaking nails this. In fact, it's kind of perfect in its balance of extreme challenge, because every encounter, it's very nicely designed. I will admit that in the 20 hours it took me to finish this game, I died a lot. There was certainly some times when it was necessary for me to step away for a second because a particular boss was just kicking my butt again and again, and yet it never felt like Mortal Shell was being unfair. It just meant that I wasn't doing enough or playing smart. A massive theme here seems to be don't rush. While it is possible to just run straight to every major encounter and legit dash past every single enemy in the game, you're going to have a really rough time. Instead, when this game feels best, when it's just the most thrilling to pick up the controller, is when you explore everywhere. These dungeons honestly aren't super big, but they have some secrets like side tunnels or optional mega monsters that if you choose to fight can unlock some really good upgrades. Now this brings us back to shells. The characters we play as are all decent on their own, and yet if you want to truly master them, you need to check everywhere and kill everything you can. Murdering foes gives you these points called tar that can be used to open up new skills for your shell, like a kick that can stagger people, the ability to absorb poisons, or even some crazy cool stuff like by far my favorite hero. He has a skill where the more times I'm able to kill enemies without dying, I get a slowly stacking damage bonus, which really encouraged me to not only kill more, but also to be hyper careful and to make sure that at all times I'm vigilant. I like that every one of these heroes, I would get really hyped to get that next talent point, to get another chance to try and customize my particular way of play, and these upgrades are so substantial that towards the end of the game, I felt super strong, which was so nice. This is really one of those games where the more you put into the game, the more you get out of it. Like, it was really kind of cool seeing just how many ways I could actually tinker with the way I was going to fight. And this goes especially for the weapons themselves. It was cool trying to figure out, like, my basic sword and slowly upgrading it with all the cool things I found in these dungeons. But then, after I got a chance to start saving up my money, I had a chance to purchase magic. That way I could do things like getting special upgrades and make it where my actual sword could shoot ice, which is crazy. Or I could do some really crazy stuff like I found a repair kit, and by using this repair kit, I built a 50-pound crossbow that can instantly kill everybody in a straight line. There is so much depth to the world that just completely made me impressed every single time I got to a new place to explore. But that does bring me to the downsides. There are a couple problems with this game that are quite substantial, and I think it's important to mention this. The number one thing is that we need to realize that this is an indie project. This was made by just a couple people, and so because of it, there are some weird errors and stuff. There were a lot of times where my camera would get stuck inside of walls. I died a couple deaths simply because I could not see who was attacking me, and there were weird times where I definitely kind of just glitched out the game in general. Like right here, I saw this guy, and I'm like, wow, what a beautiful, cool tower, and then suddenly I fell off a ledge and it had stuck outside of the game itself. So I had to commit suicide on this ledge and lose all the tar I'd saved up just because the game basically screwed itself. The other major problem I have is one that is much more substantial because, in my opinion, once I figured this secret out, it kind of broke the game for me, which is that I noticed that every single enemy in this game walks. Pretty much everybody walks at like half a mile an hour, including the mega bosses. Like, these are some of the toughest foes in the game, and you can just straight up walk away from them. Now, as you see, there's like this Fire Lord. He's trying to eat my face. I am very slowly just out walking him to the point in which I can even use healing items slowly, one by one, eating plants and stuff to get full health in the middle of the fight super easily, and then just go right back to fighting him. You can even do this to the last boss. Now, I'm not going to show you the last boss, but you can straight up walk away from them, which kind of makes it where It over empowers the healing items in this game. So the primary way that you restore health is by eating foods, which you can find throughout the place. Like you can find like campfires and stuff and find like boiled frogs to eat. But one of the things you can definitely eat that's the most accessible, which is mushrooms. You find these mushrooms in random spots and they regrow every 5 minutes. And there's actually a timer on the screen. So after a while, what I ended up doing is to completely break the game, I straight up just stood next to a mushroom for like 2 hours and just picked like 100 of them. I just stood here, and because they just kept popping back up, I grabbed a couple mushrooms, and then I pretty much never died ever again in the rest of the game. And to me, I think that if you're going to make a game challenging, if you're going to try and sell it as like an indie Dark Souls, you need to make sure that there's not just such an easy exploit. It's kind of bizarre to me that this can have so many huge boss fights that are so impressive to see in action and so beautiful, and then they're just such a joke once you unlock the secret of power walking. I do wish that they managed to do something with that, because the rest of this game is so nice. I love the art style. There are so many just creepy, weird, haunting spots in this game that I just stopped and had to gawk at because they looked so good, and then they'd get shattered when I realized that this hard mode game is a lot easier than it may appear. Okay, so we've heard some good and some bad, but let's go over the ratings board and put a big number on it. I am giving Mortal Shell an 8.5 out of 10. If you happen to be looking for a nice budget adventure, something that's going to be really cool to check out and fun to learn, but doesn't cost $60, I highly recommend you pick this up. I had a great time with it. I'm probably going to buy, they just announced a physical version of the game, and to be perfectly honest, I'm definitely going to buy that because I want to have this on my shelf because it's actually a really impressive little experience. Thanks so much for watching, gamers. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, share with your friends, and subscribe if you haven't already. But do me the biggest favor of all and keep dreaming. Thanks so much for watching that video. If you want to see something else, you can always click this link to see what I put up last, or, subscribe and see what's coming up next. Also, I promise that whatever I do, it'll try not to suck.